Thanks so much for checking out the most recent video in my video series. Be sure to follow me at JayPhoenixMusic.com and then check out my website, JayPhoenixMusic.com. Couple quick announcements. Ian and I have been putting out covers weekly. We release Sucker, Bad Guy, Hey Look Mom Made It, Dancing with a Stranger. And we're actually taking this week off to put some new ones in the chamber. So just stay tuned and I'll keep you updated when the next one's going to be released. Also, all the covers are going to be available on Spotify and Apple Music. If you check it back on my website, I'll make sure to have all of the hyperlinks so that way you could listen to it on whatever your preferred streaming platform is. Also this weekend, I'm adding a new section of my video series, which I'm really excited about, and it's allowing me to kind of bring in my closest friends. So you can kind of meet the people who inspire me and also help me throughout my own projects, and also the people who I want to support their projects as well. So I'm looking forward to sharing all that with you pretty soon. So yeah, this is actually a different video than what I've done. As for those of you who've been kind of checking out my stuff, I've always done pop reviews and then videos about my friends, and then also videos about just my own music, kind of behind the music. And today I kind of wanted to start a new section where I go over different classical pieces of music. And I thought what better one to start with than my favorite piece of music ever made, objectively the best piece of music ever made, Rachmaninoff's Piano Concerto No. 2. So Rachmaninoff actually wrote this after one of the failures of his symphonies, and it tanked, and he was super depressed. Actually had to see a therapist, Nikolai Dahl, and he actually used forms of hypnotherapy to kind of get Rachmaninoff out of his depression. And he ended up dedicating this concerto to his therapist. And what's cool is this whole concerto kind of outlines his journey in this entering depression and also getting out of it. First off, if you know Rachmaninoff, I already like you. Second of all, if you don't know Rachmaninoff, you probably know Tchaikovsky, who did Swan Lake and all that other stuff. Swan Lake, Nutcracker, his more famous ones. But Tchaikovsky was Rachmaninoff's, one of his idols. He was inspired much by Tchaikovsky. So, but yeah, Rachmaninoff is this beast of a Russian composer, and he was this huge guy, and he's known, I don't know if you guys saw the movie Shine with Jeffrey Rush, but it was about Rachmaninoff. He had these huge hands, and because he had these huge hands, he was able to write this really virtuosic piano music that is really difficult to play. So it's a 3-movement piano concerto, and as far as what a concerto is, it essentially features a solo artist, and then it's 3 movements, and what's nice about what I was saying earlier is that it outlines his depression. So in the beginning, it's just kind of introduces you to this overture of how depressed he was, and then this middle movement is kind of almost Better Times, where it's he's reminiscing on maybe better moments, and then the final movement is the final push to really get out of his current slump. And it ends with this big, beautiful fanfare, and it's such a great piece. It's been used in so many different movies and all that. And definitely, it's worth listening. It's about 35 minutes worth listening to every minute, because it'll take you anywhere and everywhere. But yeah, Rachmaninoff is this beast of a composer. A lot of his piano works are really dense, and I always say if I had a favorite composer, it would be Chopin or Rachmaninoff. Rachmaninoff because he could just pull at your heartstrings like no other composer can, and Chopin because he's more articulate. And I would say if Chopin and Rachmaninoff had a baby, it would definitely be the best composer by far. So my personal connection to the piece is when I first heard it, I was probably 16, and there's a movie called For Horowitz, and it's about this, from what I know, it's about this piano student, and he's taught by his teacher, and he ends up tackling this piece, and what I remember seeing is just this 5-minute breakdown of the whole concerto. So obviously they're gonna pull the best parts. And I saw that, and it's really cheesy, but I would visualize myself playing it, and I would pretend I was playing it. And I remember bringing it to my piano teacher at the time, it was Peter Yazbek, and he was like, "Oh, I know this piece," and it was the piece that he debuted in New York with, and he got emotional about it because that was a really piece close to him. And then now all of a sudden out of the ether, I'm "Oh, I want to learn this piece." So I started kind of training with him, trying to get the piece under my fingers, and then I ended up auditioning to have it played with an orchestra. And then I ended up getting it, and I played 2 movements from the piece, on different occasions. But I closed both concerts. And what was cool is the first time I played, he's "You have a tuxedo?" And he was this big guy, and he was one of the biggest motivations in my lifetime as a musician, as a pianist. And he was "You you have a tuxedo?" I was "No." So he goes into his closet. He's this big Lebanese guy, but then he pulls out this tiny tuxedo, and he's "Oh, we'll try this." And we had an alter, and it fit me perfectly. And it was just this whole moment where I was able to hear this piece, and it eventually turned into me learning the piece and then eventually performing it. And still those 2 days that I performed the first and the third movement along with just Mr. Yazbek, that whole experience is still one of the best experiences of my life. So as far as how Rachmaninoff influences me, this is my whole thing is I always say I'm integrating classical music and jazz with pop and EDM. And I'm always inspired by these huge pieces that these composers like Rachmaninoff would make. And in 45 minutes he could take you from like the deepest of the deeps to the highest of the highs. And a lot of it, I mean, there weren't even words. Yeah, I mean, there was no like fancy sound design tricks. There's no production tricks. It was just straight music. So I feel like, if I could kind of bring that straight kind of musical composition into pop music, and it would only intensify the already like the size of like what production can do as far as like sound design, mixing, that kind of stuff. So directly how Rachmaninoff influences me is I want to bring the grandiose nature of his composition and condense it to like bite-sized pieces that could be palatable for pop music today. Thank you so much for checking out the most recent video of my video series. I really appreciate it, and I'm always gonna be adding like these new kind of sections. And if you have any tips on how I can improve any of these sections, whether it's about my friends or pop music or classical music, I'd love to know, and give me your thoughts as far as maybe other content that you'd like me to include in these videos, as far as maybe compositional techniques, stuff like that. I know that's definitely on my priority list, and now that I'm 3 months in, I'm going to start planning those more in-depth analytics or analyses of classical music, and also even pop structure and that kind of stuff, because I know that a lot of producers would benefit from that. Also, one quick shout out to my friend Haley. She released another episode of her podcast this week. Be sure to check it out. We were able to record it at Corey Renew's studio, which was great. We used his booth. And it's a really cool podcast episode. As you know, Haley, she's this very empathetic, very kind, and very deep individual, and she just has like very good takes on different things like spirituality and music, obviously, because we work together musically. But yeah, it's a very deep and dense episode for only being short. It's like 5-6 minutes. But be sure to check her out. Thanks so much for checking out my video. Make sure to follow me at JayPhoenixMusic and check out my latest releases at JayPhoenixMusic.com.